Here's a statement for you. All games are political. That just comes free with creating something. Any media we interact with, any piece of art we experience, was made by a person who took their values, lived experiences, and emotions and created something that has a political statement, whether they like it or not. Even something void of any political messaging is, ironically, also political. Video games are subject to this, and sometimes you might hear some dumbass online say something along the lines of "keep politics out of games" or anything related to this. They might change their vocabulary because people are getting smart to what they mean. And when they say this, you have to remember two things. One, they're terrified of playing a game where you're not some cis straight white guy because now they have to experience empathy for once in their life. And two, they mean keep politics I don't agree with out of games, because they too on some level recognize that it is really difficult to create something wholly apolitical. And that leads me to talk about today's topic, Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor ReFantazio is Atlus's latest RPG, and it's very quickly becoming my #1 RPG of the year, which is not easy for me to say because there have been some pretty strong contenders and this year's not even over. It's wild also how two of these RPGs are published by Sega. Metaphor was developed by Atlus's latest division, Studio Zero, headed by Katsura Hashino, who previously worked on some Shin Megami Tensei games as well as Persona 3 through Persona 5, and this game has taken all that he and the team have learned over the previous years to create something new. It's very easy to say that this game is Persona 6 or Fantasy Persona, but that just falls into the meme of person who's only played Persona 5 finally plays a second RPG. But you can see where this has taken elements from both Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. You still have to go through dungeons before a given deadline, and you can spend time with party members and characters you've met along the way to build your social links, and you can spend time to build up your personality stats, which in this game are called royal virtues. The changes come from what are more quality of life changes, such as not worrying about failing social interactions because you picked the wrong dialogue, and that invisible relationship bar did not fill all the way, so you gotta spend more time eating ramen with them or just hanging out with them, which makes things take a bit longer. And also, while leveling up your royal virtue stats, you get to see how far along you are until the next rank. Time management also had a bit of a change because now you have to take into account what side quests and bounties you can and can't do, which may also have their own little deadlines. Rather than saving up a whole bunch of side quests to finish in one go like in Persona 5's Mementos, you now have to plan which ones you may want to focus on, as these can unlock optional dungeons, and in order to get there, you may need to spend 1, 2, maybe 3 days to reach it as you travel across the overworld, while planning to avoid inclement weather because that would make enemies more difficult to fight. And all this will take time out of the amount you're given to complete the main dungeon. This helps make your decision feel more deliberate, because if I want to get to a dungeon and it takes like 2 days to get there, I need to make sure I can afford those 2 days and that those days aren't better spent building my social bonds with characters or focusing on completing the main dungeon. There are a few things, such as maybe you only have to talk to a character while traveling because there's like this road trip thing that's going on. So sometimes you might have to talk to them in the cities, or maybe you have to talk to them while traveling, and you have to plan this out accordingly if you want to get everything done. The combat also follows your standard turn-based RPG format while bringing along Shin Megami Tensei's press turn mechanic, where if you hit an enemy with either a critical attack or their weakness, then that will count as like half a turn. The game also has a class system called archetypes, and each party member can be any archetype when it's unlocked, and if they meet certain requirements as well. This allows you to bring along your favorite characters into dungeons, as well as be able to build an optimal and effective team for whatever dungeon you're delving into. These archetypes can also evolve over time, such as the mage becoming a wizard to then becoming an elemental master. Archetypes can also do this thing called synthesis with another person in the party for these big damaging attacks or big status effect abilities, so it helps to look and see what does and doesn't synergize with one another. The game also has something that I wish more turn-based RPGs had, and that's real-time combat, where you can stun the enemy, giving you an advantage at the start of turn-based combat, or outright defeat them if you're strong enough. But this comes with a really big risk, because if you get hit by an enemy who is as strong or stronger than you, then odds are it's going to be game over. They're going to attack first, they're going to hit all your weaknesses, and you might not not even get a turn, especially when playing on hard difficulties such as hard or regicide, because those don't fuck around. And while it has some really solid gameplay, the thing that's been keeping me hooked the most has been this game's story and messaging. Metaphor's story explores the topics of racism and classism, all with a healthy dose of fuck the church. The setting is the United Kingdom of Uchronia, populated by different races called tribes, and despite efforts to work towards equality, there is heavy discrimination in the kingdom, and your race, the Elda, who look like regular humans, are the most discriminated against. The main plot is that the king is dead and the throne is empty. The prince is alive unbeknownst to everyone, but is stricken with a magical curse that's slowly killing him. The way to break this curse is to kill the one who cast it on the prince, and that target of ours is Luis, a military officer in the kingdom. Now, the king has a contingency plan put in place to crown the next monarch in case he dies, and this plan is a democratic election, protected and upheld by the king's own magic. You find that Luis is vying for the throne, which could cause the kingdom to crumble, and along with Luis, you have this universe's pope, I guess he's like the pope, who is also vying for the throne to keep the status quo in place given the power that the church already has. And with the two most popular candidates being the best examples of utter garbage, you decide to run in this election in place of the prince while also trying to assassinate Luis. One thing you'll come to notice with Metaphor is that it wears its progressive messaging on its sleeve, and it ends up being far more nuanced than it originally appears. Racism is a simple message, and stopping it by killing the CEO of racism is enough of a story to tell, but would it be enough to solve our world's problems? Metaphor addresses this in a way you don't tend to see in other fantasy settings. When you witness the discrimination of the other tribes, you'll find that it's more than just a few slurs and insults. You'll find that there's prejudices held, and this has created a system that continuously oppresses. One tribe, the Parapists, who have like these beast ears and tails, are usually looked down upon. A majority of the homeless in the capital are of this tribe. When convicted of a crime, they're not even given a fair trial, and due to a stereotype about them being inconsiderate to difficult situations, they are also not allowed to participate in politics. And then you have the Clamar, who are the horned race, and they hold more important positions in society as well as positions in nobility. Even the king and his bloodline are Clamar, and this grants them more clemency in society. Oh, maybe that's why they call them that. And if this prevalent racism in the society were to be abolished, what would happen next? Would it be possible for this discriminated against Parapist to be on the same level as this noble Clamar? Well, that's where the game talks about classism, and that's when this discussion comes in, where even one character mentions equal competition doesn't mean equal footing, and this acknowledgement of these systems built upon a racism that exists within society is but another pillar that needs to be toppled in order to strive for equality. Keep in mind that this game was announced back as Project ReFantazio back in 2016, and it has been in development for about 8 years. So this discussion on racism and classism has evolved over time within the game to the point where it has become a lot more than just let's stop racism. It's let's stop racism, and what would happen afterwards? Would we still have equality, or will there be other problems in place that prevents us from reaching this level of equality that we strive for? There's a lot more I want to talk about with this game and its themes, and given how recent this game is, I really don't want to spoil this for anybody who's watching this. I want to keep this spoiler free, which is why I limited the amount of clips to like the end of the second dungeon, and even then I'm probably only showing things that are like spoiler free in that sense, not really any major story plot points. For example, I've barely touched on its topic of religious extremism and how that helps perpetuate racism, and I haven't even talked about how anxiety is a overarching theme that also exists throughout this game with your character as well as with your party members, and how social links help try to resolve your character's anxieties. This is a game that's really worth playing. It's a story-heavy game with really solid gameplay, and maybe one day down the line I can find the time to actually sit down and talk more in depth about the themes of the story and more of the themes of the game, and why I think this is possibly one of the best stories to discuss systemic racism. But before I end this off, I want to talk about one final thing, sort of to bring it all the way back to the beginning of this video. In a more recent interview, Katsura Hashino said this: "I want something, even if it's not complete, even if it's really rough, even if it's something really unfinished, to give me a glimpse of the humanity behind it. I want to know who created it, and for it to give me a glimpse of the emotion that inspired it." And this ties back to what I said at the start. Metaphor is a very political game, and it is art. It wears its messaging on its sleeve and doesn't shy away from it, and this was brought about because of the values and emotions of the creators and developers behind it. And it's this human element that made it what it is. When was the last time you heard someone describe art as soulless? I remember seeing this video of this like one AI singer, like Anna Indiana, I think their name was, where they, as if this is an actual person, where the songs are made using AI, and the song is called Betrayed by This Town. And the video says that everything is generated using AI, and when you listen to the song, you can just tell that there is no soul behind it. This song is fucking terrible, but even terrible songs written by people have something behind it. We Built This City by Starship was seen as one of the worst songs back in the 80s, but there is something behind it by trying to push this anti-corporate message while also sounding very corporate. That is why media is political. That is why when somebody creates something, whether it's art, media, books, music, whatever, there's politics in it, and that is the values that people put in this. In contrast, Betrayed by This Town sounds like it has no meaning at all, no creativity, no soul, and it might be the very essence of being apolitical. But at that point, we have to ask ourselves if we can really call that art. Hey everyone, I want to say thank you for watching. So I really enjoy this game, and I think it's better than Persona 5 myself, and I'm interested to see what Studio Zero is going to do in the future. But to those of you who did play this game, what do you think? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? And to those of you who haven't played it and are considering getting it, what are you looking forward to with this game? Before I go, I want to say standard YouTube fare. If you liked the video, then leave a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. I'm working on another video right now, and if you want to watch that in the future, then consider subscribing to the channel. And apart from that, I want to say thank you for watching my videos, and remember, until next time, I appreciate you.